Welcome to Spoiler Talk for Glimpse by Jonathan Maberry. Where to begin?
I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, let's start with some of those, and we'll see if I can play off those.
So I guess we gotta get the monster talk out of the way, and then I have some thoughts about time travel and shit like that. But one I'm starting with like one of my kind of negative thoughts about the book. What I really enjoyed about probably the first 40 or so percent of the book was how little we knew about what was going on. She was having these weird nightmares. There was a Dr. Nine. That's his name, right?
It's his name.
Dr. Nine. And I was like, oh, I got a tattoo of a 9 on my arm. She's having these weird nightmares. Dr. Nine's involved. He sounds really sinister. Don't know what's going on. And in the beginning of the book, we benefit from the fact that like she's a junkie. So she's one of the most unreliable narrators we could ever have, because like she can't even trust herself sometimes. I was really into it. But the more like the mythology was revealed, the less I really cared about it.
Oh, no. Here's the divergence.
Was it the opposite for you?
I fucking love Dr. Nine and his cohorts.
So, yes, I will agree. I think the characters were good. I don't like the story that ended up being like the explanation of them.
Mm-hmm. Here's my take on them. And I think, and it's tough, man, because like you can't write a new story.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. So I came up with a joke in my head, right, last week. And I was, you play these stupid things out in your head, right? Like, I'm never going to be a stand-up comedian. But I was like, oh, I have this joke that could be a good, like, 2-minute bit, right? And I was like, man, it's almost impossible that somebody hasn't thought of this joke, because my joke isn't new. So it's not something that happened in the news yesterday where I might be one of the first people to have this funny thing to say. I'm not going to get into it, but it's one of those things that it's gone on for thousands of years, right? It's something about what people do. And I've never heard it, but I thought to myself, there has to be, like, if I went on and told this joke in front of a group of people who maybe are into comedy, somebody would be like, he's totally fucking ripping off this guy who I may have never even heard of, because I'm not big into stand-up comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the way I'm relating that back to this is this book felt very reminiscent of a lot of other things that I'd read. So, and I don't know if you thought this, but think about the character in Nosferatu, the Joe Hill book.
I didn't read it.
We read it for the podcast.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't? Oh, we really didn't?
No.
Did I just read that on my own?
We considered reading it for the podcast.
All right. I read it. Sorry. I assume that every book I've read for the last 8 years you've read, which is, you got to be honest, it's a pretty fair assumption for the most part.
That's true.
At any rate, was reminiscent of that character. The nurse reminded me of like the nurse from all the Alice Cooper like stage shows and stuff, right? The monk has the tattoos that are a type of magic, which is a Clive Barker thing from Harry John Moore, and that started in whatever that book was called. Anyway, you know what I mean? It was like these little bits and pieces of things I'd read and or seen somewhere else, but brought together in the best fucking possible way. So my favorite parts of this book, from a horror standpoint, from that deep, like unsettling standpoint, are Dr. Nine and Nurse Bethy and Dylan. Those interludes when he's a kid.
Yeah, they're really messed up.
Disgusting and hard to read and perfect fucking horror. Like if how do I say this? If I was judging that book just based on those interludes, like if I could cut out 40% of this book, if I could edit this down and still have it make coherent sense, right? So you had a couple passages here and there to make the transitions. To me, this could be the best horror book of all time.
Wow.
Based on the feel around Dr. Nine and the nurse and them torturing this kid for years as they're raising him, to Monk and his tattoos. And then he's got Patty Cakes, the lady who does the tattoos for him. Like, that's a great thing. You know, I mean, there are just so many great elements.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. And that's the stuff that I think I was on board for. Yeah. I think where I get mixed up. Okay. So maybe I framed it poorly. It's the like hope. Even the hope thing, like the consuming of hope or pain or whatever as like their nourishment, I thought that was pretty cool. But like, I hate it when seemingly all powerful beings have some sort of arbitrary, like mundane restriction in their power, to their power, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
like basically, like if it all comes down to the fact that if Rain just like feels good about herself, he goes away. In a way, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but like once she has hope, he's powerless. And I would prefer, I guess what I would prefer is at some point it became too late for her to turn back. You know what I'm saying? Because like the end of the story, her son gives her day back, and it's any day she wants, and so she changes the day that she decided to give up the baby, and then life is great. And that's cute and everything, but like, I don't know, like it was just very unsatisfying. I would like to have a story where it's like, hey, these are the consequences of the decisions you made that can never be changed. The only thing you can do now is just be the best person you can in this shattered world that you created, or something like that. But I don't know.
I agree wholeheartedly with the vast majority of what you said. So the fact that she goes back and actually has this baby and raises it, but like they have the knowledge,
right, of the original lifetime,
it's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
So two things happened. I was really disappointed in that ending. And you know what? Obviously, I mean, I think we all knew, right, that she's going to be reunited with her son, and he'll go on to be the match that lights the fire, that saves the whatever, right? Like, we knew that was coming. That's just a standard story. But there was that part where I was starting to put together, and the same thing. What was the fucking crazy rock and roll horror story we read?
Rock and roll horror story.
Yeah, where the chick was in the band and the guy makes a deal with the devil and his band takes off. And
we sold our souls?
We sold our souls, right? Do you remember when I said, if that bitch gets on stage and plays the fucking devil away, God damn it, there was a point in this book where I said, if this fucking Rain starts doing goddamn ballet to fight the demons, I'm going to be really pissed.
And she balleted to fight the demons.
And essentially our protagonist fucking danced to fight the goddamn demons. And I was so disappointed because I loved the Fire Zone, which is that world that she goes to in her dreams.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, Boundary Street was a fucking wonderful idea. You've got fucking Dr. Nine and the crazy nurse. They've got a mulatto zombie driving him around in this big ass Cadillac. Yeah. Like all of that fucking gold.
And like, not to step on anything you were just going to say, but the fact that like when you have Monk's backstory, it's told like a noir story. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually went first person for the only time in the book too. Yeah. There is so much good. And then there's some bad, and it's hard because you could have 80% of a great book, but 20% can diminish a lot of that. And that's where I said, I'm totally stuck on this book. I meant what I said. Some of the best horror I have probably ever read lives inside this book.
Yeah.
But overall, not so great, you know, like that's, it's tough, man, because we, and I'm going to talk about this during our wrap up, so I'll keep it fairly short here, because we have to land on a number. If I read this book on my own, I wouldn't be so torn. I'd be like, man, there was some really great stuff in that book. Done. But because I have to assign it a rating, like, how do you rate some of the best that you've read mixed in with some really kind of meh stuff? So, Dance Little Bird said Snake Dancer. What the fuck, man? Seriously, what the fuck is that? Sorry, I just opened up to my notes section. That's the first thing I saw.
Yeah, and I think that, so like, zooming out a little bit and just looking at like the structure of the book, using a bunch of junkies, while I think it was effective because it played with that whole like vulnerability, like the like teetering on the edge of hope and stuff like that. I just think junkies or addicts are kind of like an obvious, a little too out. Like there could have been a different spin on that, or at least like what they're addicted to. It was nice he gave a little bit of a spread. Not everybody was addicted to the same thing, but
Right.
like, I mean, in the fucking opioid crisis that we're going through right now, how is that not a bigger focus? You know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Because she was a crackhead.
Yes.
And then she's like, anyway, sorry.
I mean, I think that because she's 3 years out, maybe like it's more backstory and not focus. Like you have to know that she did some fucked up shit and that she has reasons for being, you know, in a fucked up place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a huge cast of characters, but all of them fit really well. The other thing that I liked was that, so I think a lot of times in what I'll call this type of horror story, someone dealing with a demon, for lack of a better term, like it's always a one-on-one thing. Mm-hmm. The fact that it was larger than that and could expand into the rest of her world was really cool. But then there's this other cool thing, right? There's the thing with Monk. So the world that this is written in has a lot of supernatural shit going on, and it's not all related. So in a lot of stories, the supernatural thing is the only supernatural thing in your story.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like it's you versus it. But this time it's like you, people around you versus it. But there's also other supernatural shit that goes on. Like people can get tattoos that then have them see the last days of the victim or whatever it was that Monk's particular ability was. So I like the multi-layered supernatural stuff a lot too.
Yeah. And that goes back. I mean, there's a lot of good about the book. I think the strongest points were, and then, all right, so I'm just going to bring up something that we haven't talked about yet. Dylan does some cool stuff too. There's like, even early in the book when he's rolling around on the skateboard, just like putting watches in people's like mailboxes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you don't, and I'm like, this is going to pay off at some point, but it's not until like 5% left in the book do you really figure out. And then the way it pays off is fucking amazing, because there's this like that brawl in the hospital room, and all the shadow people are fighting Yo-Yo and Gay Bob and Straight Bob, and that's it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Monk. And
right.
Like, so the fact that Gay Bob has to like turn everybody's clocks to give them their time back so a different version of themselves can show up and join the fray was fucking great. Like, that was really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, there's so much good stuff, and I hate to have it be overshadowed by the stuff I didn't like, but man, the stuff I didn't like was so bad. So bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think that my wrap up is going to be fairly nuanced, because I want to give him as much credit as possible, because like you said, 80% great book, 20% some serious problems.
Yeah, I have a couple of quotes that I think we'll do on book proper. So one of them, and the reason I don't want to do this one is because it directly mentions Dr. Nine, who is in the book we should never mention out loud, right? There's just this great scene. Dr. Nine sat in the back of his car eating an orange. He used a single black fingernail to slice through the skin, but he did not peel the fruit. Instead, he cut a wound in it, bent his mouth to it, and then squeezed so that the juice ran cold and sweet over his lips and chin. Only after it was sucked dry did he eat the orange, bitter skin and all. That is a great... I mean, if you want to talk about the trailer for this Netflix TV show or something, putting that creepy motherfucker in the back of a caddy and having him fucking eat an orange like that is amazing.
Yeah, this is really good visually. Yeah.
What else you got?
So
head back.
I have something from, I think it's, from the epilogue. And it's actually the last line in the entire book that I wasn't 100% sure what it meant. And so I want to talk about it just really briefly. So the epilogue kind of jumps forward in time, or whatever it does, to where life is good, and Joplin doesn't remember, but he paints a picture. So it was kind of cool. It's like the world kind of restarted after that point, where people were, kind of affected differently, but there's still kind of echoes or shadows of the reality that they changed. So that was cool, but the last line, and I don't know if you remember this. So she's talking to Monk, and he's like, "I remember, and I shouldn't," and she's like, "Oh, everything's cool," or whatever, and then they hang up. And the last line, Rain picked up her wine and looked out at the night. There were clouds in the sky, but there was no storms. But there were no storms at all in the forecast. What do you make of that?
I don't know. I didn't give it much thought, but I have to imagine that he was thinking about a play on rain, which came up a lot in the book.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that, that's what he was going for. But yeah, I don't have an actual explanation.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was because that would be the line where if you were going to say something cryptic, that would maybe imply a different understanding of the overall plot than you had ended up with. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, is there something there, or is he just saying like, things aren't as bad as they look, or I didn't know what to take of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a weird way to end the book.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you. Yeah, I know you said time travel, and I'm guessing that we kind of covered that a little bit, right? In the giving her day back and her going to. Yeah, I mean, the epilogue works for me in that if you get away from that particular part, like how she's buying up Joplin's paintings, but then winds up working her way into dating him, even though he doesn't know her. I thought that was kind of cool. The fact that Monk still knows her because he has his supernatural ability, or because of the tattoos or whatever, it was pretty cool. So I mean, even if we choose to forgive that weird time travel thing that happened, I think that he pulled it off okay. And how would you do it if the people around you didn't know and you got to that point in your life? Like if that's the chick you were in love with, you'd probably try to figure out a way to get into her life so that you can hook up or whatever. So I mean, I think that the aftermath of the potentially poor decision was done okay.
Yep. Yeah. Overall, it worked. It was just, I don't like the idea of the changing time happy ending in general. I think it just rubs me the wrong way. So that's probably where most of my objection is coming from.
And then one more thing that plays into that is the, I get it. This is not a normal scenario book, right? But there's my kid I gave up 13 years ago, and the kid wants to be with me, and I want to be with the kid, is like this just very unnatural kind of, no real resentment, like whatever, bad Dylan, future Dylan, right, at the time, is super resentful.
Right.
But Dylan in our world still just wants his mommy, and she just loves him and regrets giving, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. I don't think that's the way it works on a reunion special on 2020.
Right.
Where they track down the birth mother or whatever. I don't know. Some of that just didn't ring. It just didn't ring true to me at all.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I think that this helps me kind of have a better, it's one of those where I'm going to feel bad if I rate it too low, but I have realistic objections to it. So it'll be interesting to see how I'm going to probably let you, once we get back over there, do the wrap up first.
Yeah. All right. So thank you again, new patrons. Thank you again, old patrons. We're going to head back and watch me do really weird math to come up with a star rating for this book. So thanks again. And I can tell you, I feel pretty confident next week there will not be a spoiler talk because I know what we're reviewing. So, but soon again, we'll be back with another spoiler talk. Until then, keep reading.